It's 2023, you might have noticed, and it is September 2023 specifically. For most of us, that means we're in back to school, back to college, and back to work mode. And precisely for us that work with and in brands, it is brand planning season. That means we're thinking about what are we going to do with all of our marketing spend in 2024. Now, for those of you that have just kicked into pumpkin spice latte season, it might be a little bit upsetting to be thinking about the cold January months yet to come. But I think it is crucial we think about this right now, specifically around how AI is going to change the planning cycle for the year ahead. So I thought I would put together a few thoughts on whether or not 2024 is going to be the year of AI investment in the enterprise. And I have some thoughts on why that might be, and some on why it hasn't yet really come to fruition in 2023, despite all the chatter. So let's get into it. First thing to say, we have had a really phenomenal 12 months leading up until this point. November last year, most people didn't even really know what a large language model was, and you certainly hadn't heard of Chat GPT because it didn't exist. But in November, the world woke up to conversational AI with the launch of Chat GPT, and that was really significant for a couple of reasons. One is that it was one of the fastest growing pieces of consumer technology we've ever seen, faster than Spotify, Netflix, or the iPhone, and it reached 100 million users in just 1 month, which is a crazy amount of adoption in a very short space of time. Now, that alone is something to be noted, but it's not really the reason that businesses and enterprises were about to start paying attention. We saw the same thing in the early days of social media, for example, where lots and lots of us began to start friending one another on Facebook or sending tweets to one another, but it was a little while longer before businesses really caught on. And most technology adoption cycles are like this. What actually was the real game changer for us in this past 12 months was what happened in March. In March, GPT-4 came onto the scene. OpenAI launches GPT-4, and we begin to see the creation of this more enterprise hype cycle. Now, what's a hype cycle? You've probably heard that phrase before. It's popularized by the research team at Gartner. And usually it has this kind of rise and fall, this peak and trough. At the top, you reach this peak of excitement around a new technology. And then you see this dip off into what's often known as the trough of disillusionment. This is what we saw happen with GPT-4's launch back in March. It brought with it a bunch of things, mainly that the API became a lot more capable for enterprise applications. What we also saw around about this time is all of the big technology systems that you and I use in our businesses, particularly if you work typically behind a desk as a knowledge worker of some case. Almost overnight, everyone seemed to have LLMs being built into their technology. You had AI everywhere. I'm talking about Slack, Asana, Notion, Salesforce, Adobe. All of them suddenly started getting the ability to create text for you, to create images for you, to come up with new slide designs. And we saw all of the big keynotes from the big platform partners like Google and Microsoft launching these new AI tools. And so round about that March point is where we saw the AI adoption really hit the enterprise. But fast forward to where we are now, and we're in that 2024 planning cycle, date TBC. And there are loads of different team members in your organizations now thinking about what AI is going to be. Now, you would have thought that we would have seen some investment in AI throughout 2023, and we have. There's been some early forerunners, but there's been a number of headwinds that have really slowed things down in terms of people actually turning that thinking and talking about AI into real projects. And we saw this very similarly back at the start of 2018, when the voice assistants began to really take off and have their enterprise moment. And so here we find ourselves in September of 2023, and brands are thinking, what am I going to do next year? Now, the key difference is when they were there last year in November, before ChatGPT, no one had a line item for AI in their budget, or at least most businesses didn't, and certainly not in customer services and consumer marketing and search and those types of fields, or product and UX. Maybe they were beginning to think about certain types of AI, more likely machine learning and some algorithmic driven stuff, but certainly not large language models. Where we find ourselves now, here in this moment in September, October time of 2023, brands are putting forward their plans not just for next year, but for the next 3-year horizon. And AI is going to be a part of it. And there's a number of reasons why I think this is pretty likely. Coming up in just a couple of weeks' time here, we're going to be launching something which I'll tell you more about in just a moment, and you'll be able to get your hands on it, so stay tuned. The AI Consumer Index. We've been studying over the past couple of weeks 10,000 different people around the world in the UK, the US, Germany, Mexico, and Australia to understand what consumers are really doing when it comes to AI. And it's really revealing about what's happening. But first, let's talk about some of the AI tailwinds that are taking us into 2024. First up, we have regulation and legislation. we're seeing that a lot of the legislation that's coming down in the European Union, in the US, and various other jurisdictions is beginning to cement around a few core use cases. Regulation of foundation models and regulation of AI applications that sit on top of those foundation models. Just for simplicity, the difference between regulating GPT-4, the model, and Chat GPT, the application, in the same way of moderating, for example, Alexa from its underlying technologies like Polly and Lex that drive the systems. That regulation and legislation is beginning to bed down, and we're beginning to see enterprise organizations feel a little bit more comfortable at entering into the AI space, knowing that they're going to be protected, but also knowing what they actually have to follow, because this stuff just wasn't very clear 6 months ago. The second is around use cases. Use cases are beginning to be defined. I think this is one of the big things that a lot of people wrestle with is, well, this AI stuff is everywhere, but what am I going to use it for? And if you're watching this from a brand or a business, or you're working in an agency with brands and businesses, we're seeing a number of use cases that are beginning to be defined around customer services, in particular, reducing the amount of contact center time and calls. Also, in terms of consumer experiences, bringing things like search and generative experiences into the front end of product experiences. And in marketing, particularly in the processes that we use to generate lots of assets and content, these things are beginning to be defined. So use cases are beginning to emerge. And that means that the forerunners have gone ahead, and now everyone else is seeing what it is actually that they can do next year as they begin to deploy their budgets. And the third is around the economic value. We've already begun to see a lot of examples from the big consulting firms like the McKinseys and the EYs of the world, as well as also the advertising agencies and then the actual platform providers themselves begin to show us the economic value of using AI in your different systems. And these, I think, tailwinds are going to carry us into a new year of people planning to use AI in their different systems, whether that's in front-end applications, making them better for consumers to use, whether it's actually in the contact center and the call center, reducing call volumes, upping resolution journeys and times, and just generally helping get things done a little bit more systematically. And also in the operations layer, behind the scenes in businesses, improving systems and processes, whether that's doing things like scoping exercises, whether it's reducing simple processes, or just helping a press release get written a little bit quicker, or an HR task get taken care of. AI tailwinds are driving budgets into 2024. So what are consumers going to be doing? And why does it matter? I can give you a first headline stat from our Consumer Index 2023, the AI Consumer Index. We're launching this in a few weeks' time in October with our partners at Delineate. And one of the first stats we can reveal is that 50% of US consumers think, and I'll emphasize why, think that they have used a generative AI tool. Now, that means that some have used them. We think around about 25% have actually definitively used an AI tool. And another 25% are pretty sure they have done because they've experienced it somewhere. This type of consumer adoption is unprecedented in a technology and software stack. That quickly, 50% of people in a year already aware of what a generative AI tool is and think that they've actually used one. And we're going to see many more stats in the AI Consumer Index. You're going to be able to register for this for free. If you go to the URL www.vixenlabs.co/research, you can go and get yourself signed up. And on the website, you'll be able to go and access all of the information you need and get this sent to your inbox in October when it comes out. So I encourage you to do that. It's completely free. There's no catch. We're not going to spam you. Just go and get the report. It'll help you make some decisions. So I think that 2023 is going to be the year where we've seen a lot of experimentation. We've seen a lot of chatter, but we haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of implementation. But I think 2024 is the year that we're going to see a lot of people investing in the enterprise. And I think you might be doing it too. Let me know your comments in the chat below, and I hope this was helpful. For more thoughts like this, head to vixenlabs.co/thoughts, and I'll see you soon.